My head is still spinning. I just finished Final Fantasy VII Remake and just kind of letting it sink in, but I gotta say, I did not care for the ending, and I'm worried about the direction of the story going forward. Um, I wanted to just make this brief video highlighting a few things, my thoughts about the game, um, my memories of the original Final Fantasy VII game, and some like criticisms and critiques, things I liked, things I didn't like, um, and I have some notes here that I saved. I kind of just this isn't gonna be like a very structured review or anything, but I just want it's more of like a rant. I just want to get some thoughts out. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, stick around, let me know what you think. I'd love to engage down below in the comments. If you're not interested in Final Fantasy, then no worries. But with that being said, this is gonna have major spoilers for both of the games. I'm gonna be focusing primarily on FF7 Remake. I'm not gonna go into like the whole overall narrative of Final Fantasy VII, but basically, this game was like the first 6 hours of the original story, and it was expanded into an entire game. Um, it took me just under 45 hours to complete my first playthrough, and that's with me just taking my time. I was um, trying to be as thorough as possible, and I tried to do everything I could do, just kind of take my time through each chapter. So I think that's a fair amount of time, 45 hours to complete the game. But with that being said, there was, okay, let me just check my notes here. This isn't not going to be in like a specific order. I'm just going to highlight a few of the things that really bothered me. So like the game is extremely linear, which, I mean, you could argue that the original Midgar is kind of linear, and once they get out of Midgar, the world kind of opens up a little bit, you know. So I kind of get that, but I found myself looking at my mini map a lot and just basically following the map, just checking around corners for chests and stuff like that. I really don't like that in games. It's really distracting from the main um, sort of like action sequences and things that are taking place, like actually exploring. You just sort of are staring at the mini map, trying to see what's around the corner, the right path. But okay, so like the game itself was like incredible. The visuals were amazing. It's so amazing to see Cloud. You can like just really feel the sword, and you can really see like Midgar. The top plates was really cool, just like things in the distance. The light in the game was really amazing. I thought it looked and feel really good as far as visuals are concerned. Um, the, the expanded story, see, I feel like the narrative suffered because the story was just so bloated with like random. I didn't like the fetch quest. I didn't like just, it was cool to see like some of the stuff more fleshed out, but I don't know, like if this was just a standalone game, it doesn't have that like epicness of other Final Fantasy games. I really wish they would have focused on things that mattered, like um just, well, they did with Eris. It was really amazing to see Aerith, I'm sorry, her her adoptive mother, the house they live in, the flowers, the church, like that was amazing. But just like the main structure of the story, who Cloud really is, his relationship with Tifa, with Eris, with Barrett, um, the Avalanche thing. One thing that bothered me was so Avalanche, they're like a group of ragtag mercenaries or terrorists. That's another thing. I guess they did it because like a lot of these concepts, I guess they haven't aged very well, and people nowadays are a lot more sensitive to terrorism and stuff like that. But it's basically like a group of like environmental terrorists that seek to like thwart the efforts of a large greedy sort of power company, and they blow up a like one of their power plants essentially, or nuclear reactors, kind of a thing. Um, but and I'm sorry if this is all over the place. If you're watching this, I'm assuming you have an interest in Final Fantasy VII. Um, so like Avalanche is much bigger than it is, the organization. In the original game, I thought it was just Barrett, Tifa, Biggs, Wedge, Jesse, um, that's it. So now they're like this big organization. They have like different cells. There's like some kind of leadership somewhere. I didn't really like that. And you see, in the original game, Shinra was gonna collapse the plate to Sector 7. That's one of the most amazing moments. Like, see, one of the most amazing, touching moments of the game is just like the death of these very minor characters who die relatively early on, but that's why they're so loved. Like, that's why it has such an impact, because their sacrifice and how they are. And see, they did sort of like expand on them a little bit. We saw Jessie's family, her house she lived in, her parents, like her dreams to be an actress, like her relationship with Biggs and Wedge. Like that kind of thing is cool. And then that's why I was like, oh man, it's gonna hit me so much harder when the deaths actually happen. But basically, they they gave their lives to defend the pillar from collapsing, and they gave it their all and just died very tragically. Whenever Wedge fell from the top to the bottom, to his death, and Cloud ran over, called his name out, asked him if it was all right, and his dying words were basically like, I'm I'm glad that you remembered my name. I'm glad that you remembered who I was. I'm sorry that I wasn't very useful. Because Cloud came off as this badass mercenary, um, and just was gonna do the job and leave. So he didn't want to get close to any of the people, and that really resonated with me, and it bothered me. It bothered me that Wedge survived. I mean, look, I love them to death. It's just they had to die for the sake of the plot. And Wedge surviving, just I hate it so much. Big survived at the end too, and it's implied that maybe Jesse did as well. There was a headband and like gloves that looked similar to hers on the table. I don't know. Um, but the way that they did Jesse's death was really beautiful and touching. I thought it was cool to actually see the climb up. Although in the original Final Fantasy VII, it seemed like it was much bigger. The the support pillar was actually much bigger. There was a lot more stairs, and it just seemed more sort of dire. Like the whole fight. A lot of the stuff was just so much filler, and uh, it really bothers me. Another thing, yeah, like Wedge, he survived. He somehow, and I'm just going off my notes here, but yeah, he survived. He ended up in the underground Shinra research facility that was underneath their feet the whole time, that was surrounded by monsters, and he somehow survived even that, you know. Um, when they were climbing up to Shinra HQ from the wreckage, the background visuals were really bad. I thought in the original game you could see You could see more of the city. You could see how high up they were actually, and the graffiti on the wall was really cool too. Like the underground or the lower level, the slums, it was a lot more like darker and gritty and sort of like even like the music kind of it was atmospheric, you know. So that's another thing that I really liked. But in the remake game, the background stuff at times was really poorly done. It's great, like 90% of the time, but I noticed that it was like really poorly done at that point in the story. Um, and then in Shinra HQ, well, I mean, I kind of get why they did it this way. You know, they wanted to kind of expand it more, but in the first game, you can just in the original game rather. I'm sorry. You can walk through the front door and you have that option fairly quickly. I was actually looking for it. You have the option to go up like 60 flights of stairs, or you can just fight your way in. I chose to do the stairs just because I thought that Barrett's original sort of like comments were really funny, so I wanted to experience that again. But you know what? Like that's another thing. The voice acting is incredible, but Barrett kind of bothered me. He's too like in the original he talked a lot of shit to Cloud. Like every other word that came out of his mouth was a curse word, and it was just like really funny his expressions. This one was a lot more like dialed back, I thought. um I didn't enjoy it so much, but it still had its charm in a way, like when he was interacting with some of the characters, the little high five flaming tail thing with Red 13 in Hojo's lab. I thought that was great. But it really sucks that Red 13 can't join the party. I don't see why they didn't do that, since there was so much like party switching going on later on in the game. Um, that's another thing. I mean, would just be someone with fire materia, you know, some physical magic and some magical attacks. His first limit break, sled fang or something, and that's it. I mean, why is it so hard to like put him in the game? You know what I mean? Um, Oops. Okay, let's see what else. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of going off my notes here. Another thing I didn't like, it's just a small gripe, but like in the very beginning of the game, Cloud he grips his sword and just there it is, and they just go into it. And this one he just kind of gripped his sword and then like put his hand down. Like, come on, man. I don't know. Just let's see. Um I feel like there was something else I wanted to add. Oh, my mind is just reeling from the end. That's another thing. I'm gonna get to that in a little bit. Um, the fetch quest, yeah, I didn't like. You see, I wish they explored more of like Cloud, who he really was. It was interesting, like with the flashbacks and stuff. I was like, oh man, that's gonna be good, and like the whole little thing. And but I gotta tell you, it would leave someone very confused if they didn't have an idea of what of like some idea of the original story. Like if you just picked up this game and played it, I don't want to say you would have no idea what's going on, but it's very confusing. It confused everybody at the end, but okay, let's just go down the list here because I'm ranting. The camera, I didn't like the camera like over the shoulder all the time. I wish they used like a lot of times when you go down like stairs and stuff, or like those staircase things, it would kind of zoom out a little bit. I wish they did more of that. That was kind of cool in the original game. It was part of the charm. Um, just kind of looking over Cloud's shoulder the whole time was, I don't know. I mean, there may not be a better way to do that these days, so I guess that's okay. Fetch quest, Aerith's expanded story brought to life. I thought that was good. I didn't like the weird arbiters of fate, the whispers, the ghost things. That's just, you know, I guess that's the developer's way of saying, well, you know, we're gonna make it how we want it, and That's it. We can change whatever we want. I don't know. The combat is incredible. I loved the combat. Um, it's very technical and strategic. You know, like Barrett is heavy. His attacks are like hard hitting, slow. He is slow to dodge, etc. Tifa, she's really quick and agile. She's very strong, vulnerable. Like you really have to be on point with dodging, or you're gonna get waffle stomped as Tifa. Um, I had a lot of trouble early on before I got used to the system with her being knocked out, and me not like really playing sort of like a balanced way. You know, I would just go all in and get knocked the fuck out. Um, I wish they added an option. They did earlier. They did later. Add this, but by that time, I was just so over it that I didn't care anymore. But I wish they had an option right before like big fights, big encounters, to look over your materia and look over your gear. That was one of the things that really bothered me. You know, I'm fighting a bunch of soldier guys. They're weak to fire, so I have fire socketed in my materia, or I have fire materia socketed into my materia slot on my equipment. So I go in, you need lightning. So I gotta redo the fight, put lightning, I get my ass kicked, I come back with the other materia. Like I wish that was, you know, because I mean pretty much mostly everything's like fire and then the machines are lightning, you know, but I wish there was just an option to look over your gear, look over your items, make sure you go in before the fight. Another thing that bothered me was there was like a bench and like a potion machine at every other thing, like every corner. It's like there's no sense of like danger as you're kind of exploring. There's no, you know, like in the original, it's like, oh man, you know, is there a save point up ahead? Like, what's gonna happen? Like, if I take another step, I might have a random encounter, and like I'm really low on items. Like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like, that kind of adds more to the danger. You know, that I just feel like that was lacking a little bit. Um, let's see. Yeah, the combat is amazing. Um, I really think it's one of the best that we've seen in Final Fantasy games. Although it did annoy me, like you had to be right up to, you could get interrupted very easily, but you work so hard to build stagger and build limit, if like you can miss, and that really pissed me off. I didn't like that. So you have to be really kind of you have to pay attention. You can't just spam whatever and hope it hits. I mean, not that I do that, you know, there's like the combat though, just yes, like you can be interrupted. You can have like an ability that costs 2 ATB bars. You spend time building the ATB bars, you start to cast it, and you just get interrupted, you know? I don't know. That was annoying at times. Um, God, like, okay, the mayor. Did I miss that? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, I did miss that. I'm sorry. The mayor of Midgar is part of Avalanche? Come on, you know? In the original, you kind of explore that sort of library thing, like the library room, and it gives you hints on the password. And I get it. Like he's still the same mayor. He hates his position. He hates that they basically put him in a closet and put him out of the way, and he's just kind of like a figurehead, and he wants to get back at them, so he gives them the key card. He doesn't care about that. But he's part of Avalanche? Come on, man. Come on. And then like Wedge somehow ended up from being critically injured to resting, I mean to, yeah, like resting in Eris's house first of all, but then going to the mayor's office in Shinra and tell them to get on the roof for extraction. Come on, man. Like, what is this Avalanche high command? Like, who are they? Why can't it just be Barrett and Tifa and Cloud, you know, just like the original cast? That's like the centerpiece of the story. um Another thing, like Hojo's lab was extremely tedious. Okay, well, look, with that being said, the Shinra HQ building was so nice. the floors were shiny, everything was perfect. It was like a modern corporate like super house. I loved it. Like it was just amazing. It looks and feels like they got it just right, and it was fun. Like going through the floors, like oh man, you know. Um, but Hojo's lab, although it was visually amazing, like all the pipes and experiments and test tubes and stuff, it got so tedious doing the little puzzles with the little levers and switching between the parties. Like I hated that so much. I got so tired of it. Ugh. And by the time I finished, I was so exhausted that I was just it see the end of the game, the last two chapters, they throw so much at you that you're just like, what the fuck, man? Like, okay, here's my second biggest gripe besides besides like Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge should have died. I love them, but they should have died, okay? My second biggest gripe was that in Final Fantasy VII, at this point in the game, they build it up to Shinra is like the most ruthless and evil, greedy corporation ever, and they're not to be messed with. They're powerful and they don't fuck around. They dropped an entire pillar on like I don't know how many hundreds of people, maybe thousands. They don't care. Like just to kill like a couple of people, they did that, you know? So the president is like propped up as the biggest threat that there is, you know? So in the original game, you get captured at Shinra. You get arrested, you get put in jail. You wake up, the doors are open, things are kind of strange, everybody's dead. There's a massive, there's blood everywhere. Blood everywhere. There's been, like, everyone's been massacred. Just completely, brutally killed by like a slashing weapon. So, well, that's later on, but like at this point in the game, that's the mystery, you know? So you get up to the president, he's dead on his desk with a sword in his back. Who possibly could have done this? Who could be the greater threat, you know? Cloud knows, Tifa knows, we know, kind of. You don't know exactly. Like the player doesn't like know yet, but just it really adds to the mystery of Sephiroth, of who he really is. What is he? What's causing all this? So, God, just whenever you get there and the president is hanging on the ledge crying for help, gosh, that annoyed me so much. That's like the most powerful man in the world begging for his life. And there's Barrett and the crew. You know, I get that, but then you save his life, he goes to the desk, gets a gun, threatens them, and then Sephiroth kills him. Come on, man. I hate that so much. That lost the impact. Do you see what I mean? Whenever you first arrive and just see it, like, you see, that's the thing with like modern games and movies and everything. Like, there has to be that action. You have to have like the visual. You can't just kind of I don't know what I'm trying to say. You have to build things up and just well, like the execution of how they did that scene, it didn't resonate well with me. I guess I was a big fan of the mystery of it more. Like if it stayed as it did in the original, but with the modern graphics, it would have been amazing to see. Another thing too is like when Sephiroth kills Barrett, but doesn't really kill him because it's not his fate to die there or something. That took away from it as well, because then what? Just they could kind of change their fate and kind of just do whatever with the story. The reason I say that is like Final Fantasy VII was really bold because it killed off one of the main characters permanently, dead forever. Nothing you can do. So, I don't know, like the whole thing of like you die, come back, whatever, no problem. It takes away from the fear of death. And yeah, so and another thing too, like right after that, Rufus, the son of the president, kind of just took over. So, and that fight was amazing. It was amazing. The Rufus fight on the roof on the helicopter pad. That was cool. But it undermined the the story of Sephiroth. Like, we don't do we care anymore? Oh, look, let's just go to the next action thing. And then another thing, like, yeah, the rescue helicopter that they sent to rescue them, it had Avalanche written on it. And with as much surveillance and all there is, what do you think would have happened? You know, that was. I just kind of put that in there because it would have pissed me off if they just, like, evacuated from the roof. So it's good that they had, like, the Rufus fight. That was kind of similar to the original. It was, like, a really cool fight, like a knife. Well, not a knife, but like a sword and a gunfight, you know, kind of a thing. That was cool, but Cloud kind of almost falling off the ledge and Tifa coming back to save him. I mean, come on, man. Just like put the sword on your back like you always do, lift yourself up, or throw the sword and just get up there. Like, see, that was kind of just like a bullshit way to divide the parties. I didn't like the whole switching back and forth between parties thing. Uh, yeah, and then yeah, so whatever. The option for the materia before fights. Wedge was there again, being pulled away by the arbiters of fate, and my number one thing was like Wedge not dying. I'm sorry, it just bothers me. Um, yeah, the narrative suffered because the expansion was just so a lot of they did a lot of unnecessary things, and then things that they should have emphasized on or had the time and resources to, they didn't. And the mystery of Sephiroth, it really suffered because there was just so much going on. And that was like the big thing from the Shinra HQ thing, is to show you how powerful Sephiroth is, why he needs to be stopped, and what he means to Cloud, like their relationship. And I mean, I kind of get it because yeah, they did that, okay, but it was just so over the top. The Arbiter of Fate thing when they went into the weird little portal, that was basically, it kind of reminded me of the Four Kings from Dark Souls. That was discount Four Kings, except there was three ones and then one big one in the back. It was a lot of beautiful visuals, but it just deteriorated into like bright lights and loud music and just too much, too fast, back to back. Like, you escape with the motorcycles and the things. So you have like the bike chase and the van, like that was cool. It was like the vehicles were cool, the motorcycle, the van, that was all right, you know. And see, they fought that boss at the end of the road. They fought the boss, but this time you fight it on the road, and it was really annoying. It was just, you just don't have time to. It's just throwing things at you, you know, nonstop. Just all big ass explosions and no substance. That's kind of what I put. The one thing, like each time you defeat one of the arbiters, you see like the future glimpses of the timeline. I thought that was cool. Just another thing I really liked was the reimagined music. It's very beautiful, very well done, very fitting. I really like the Chocobo theme. That's one we don't hear a lot of because that's like kind of in the middle of the game. You kind of ride through like fast travel a couple of times and you hear it, but um, the wall market music really annoyed me. Not so much when you're in Wall Market, but the music when you're kind of exploring that area, like in the collapsed tunnel and stuff. It had like a weird kind of techno-y, electric kind of like, it was too fast and too annoying, and it was really jarring and it got on my nerves. The ending, God, the fight with Sephiroth was like, look, it was amazing, but I feel like they pulled it straight out of Advent Children, and like it was just so much. It was like everything you would expect in a final boss fight. Everything, the cool moves, the cool setting, debris flying everywhere, just like maximum power, just everything right out of the gate, like 0 to 1 billion. Like, here's everything. One winged angel, the song, he actually had the one wing, his armor, the sword, all the cool moves, everything. But it just, why in the first 6 hours of the game, you know? My mind is still reeling. I'm still kind of like trying to wrap my head around it. um Seeing Zach again, people don't even know who he is really, like that, you know. And then it's implied that he survived the encounter with the soldiers, he didn't die. Maybe he went and crawled into a pipe. I was kind of looking for that. I was a big fan of like the guy in the pipe theory from the first game. Those are just my thoughts. This is just kind of like a rant video. I enjoyed the game a lot. It was amazing to see old friends kind of come back. It was amazing to see Cloud, Tifa, Barrett. They looked really good. Aerith looks really good. Aerith, rather, I'm sorry. I just got used to calling her Aerith in all these years. But just as like a casual fan, I'm not like an expert on Final Fantasy VII. Oh, here's another thing. I didn't get to showcase this. Well, see, look, first of all, people love Final Fantasy. I feel like Final Fantasy VII, a lot of people really love it because of the nostalgia, sort of. Like that. That's why it's their favorite one. Now, me personally, I had a different kind of a story. Final Fantasy VI is my favorite Final Fantasy. But my first Final Fantasy was Final Fantasy VIII on the computer, of all things. I had a late start. I didn't have a lot growing up, and it wasn't until later on in life I went back and played all the classics. But I eventually picked up Final Fantasy VII. This is the original game. This is the greatest hits version on PlayStation 1. And I actually played this on my PlayStation 2. I didn't have a memory card, so I would always try to go as far as I can and just kind of pause it. So I'm very familiar with like the opening of the game. I try to explore every little area. The music was amazing. The graphics were amazing for the time. The game didn't age very well, but the concept and everything is, it's a great game. It's an amazing game. And I mean, maybe, you know, maybe it is asking too much, or maybe it would be too kind of, I don't know, boring, or I don't know what's the word. Like, if the game were to be completely rebuilt from the ground up and like brick by brick, exact remake, just with modern graphics, I don't know. I guess it's okay for them to explore new ideas and kind of, it's a remake, but it's also like an entirely new game. It could go in a totally different direction. I mean, who knows? Who knows what could happen? It sold very well, so I'm assuming they'll keep churning them out. I hate that it's only the first 6 hours, and I have to admit they'll still get my money though. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the series. I don't treat myself to a lot, but I really wanted to experience this game. And yeah, I mean, here's the remake. I actually got the deluxe edition. I'm late to the party. It arrived late because of the whole delays and shipping and all that stuff going on right now. But it arrived late. But I enjoyed it. It took me just under 45 hours. So I liked the game. A lot of things in it were amazing, but I hate how the story got weird and confusing, and they added a lot of weird stuff. So I'm very worried about the future of the game, but I guess I'll take what I can get at this point. Cloud is back, our boy, and we've been waiting a long time. We've been waiting 23 years, you know. So here we are, and let's see what happens. But those are just my thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate it. I feel like there was just a lot more, but my mind is just reeling from the ending. But that's how I feel. Let me know what you think. Did you like the game? Did you hate it? Have you ever played Final Fantasy? What do you think about the Final Fantasy series in general? I'd love to know. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.